give more than you take, right? Like, if you can offer help, or if you can offer something even without expectations, I think it don't even expect, but it just comes back to you in multiple ways.
The following is a long open conversation with Kruthiga Permar, the Director of Corporate Development at the Asia School of Business. We got a chance to sit and talk about many topics, like how was her early years growing up in both Malaysia and India, what made her choose to continue a career in the information technology industry, and what he is currently doing in the APAC region. This is On the Lawn with FVR podcast. If you like this thing, feel free to like and subscribe and to contribute to the channel on the description below. And now with y'all, Kruthiga Permar.
Can you imagine that tomorrow is Wednesday, but then we have a holiday on Thursday? It's like, how many holidays are in the calendar? I don't know, I missed a count.
It's Malaysia. Welcome to Malaysia, Fabian.
Wow.
Yes, we are really lucky that way, and unlucky as well. It's unlucky for businesses who operate out of Malaysia because it does tend to get very disruptive. But if you're an individual who's here to enjoy life, Malaysia is the place to be.
That's a good thing to consider. I guess we can start. 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode on The Long with FVR. Today we have Kruthiga. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Fabian.
So,
My pleasure.
finally we got a chance to sit and talk about many topics, and many people will be watching and it's like, okay, why is this guest here? So I want to ask you, can you tell us a little more about yourself?
Well, my name is Kruthiga to start with. It's quite complicated, so I have a glamour name. It's called KRU, KRU, and well, a little bit about myself. I'm Malaysian, and I spent a considerable amount of time growing up in India, and I have been in the education sector all along, almost all about 23 years, working in different aspects of education industry, and yeah, that sort of like defines who I am. Personally, I'm a mother of a 16-year-old now, and I consider it to be a proud achievement. Yeah.
That's a fantastic way to start the episode. Now, you were growing up in India, but India is very big. So, in which part specifically?
I grew up in a couple of places. One is hometown to my mom, who's actually who hails from India. So this is a place in Tamil Nadu, which is called Kumbakonam. It's a beautiful temple town based out of South India. So I grew up there for about 2 to 3 years, and then my family moved to New Delhi, and I spent almost all of my formative years in New Delhi, studying there and really immersing in the culture in Delhi. Yeah.
So, I need to ask you, given that perspective, that were you growing up and also getting your school years there, so how was the world growing up?
I would say Delhi, to be really honest with you, it really grows into you. It's a very eclectic place. It's a mishmash of colors, culture. It's a lot of fun, to be honest, growing up in Delhi, because first of all, to begin with, there are various seasons in Delhi. Not necessarily in all parts of India, but in Delhi we've got various different seasons. We have the summer season, we have the winter season, we have, of course, monsoon, dry season, and also a strange season of dust storms. It's so the weather itself is a huge conversation and everyday's topic. And depending on weather, there are different clothes, different types of food, different types of seasonal fruits to be enjoyed. And in fact, the culture in Delhi is such that people really celebrate each season in different ways. And so there are different parties associated with each season. So it's a lot of fun. And the people in Delhi are also very, bold, brave, and a fun bunch. A lot of people who are, new to Delhi either hate it or love it. So it's quite an extreme.
So there's nothing in between.
Yeah, there's no in between. Either you really fall hard in love with Delhi or otherwise. Yeah, so I think I did the latter, which is, I did the former, which is really fall in love with Delhi, and not just with Delhi, but somebody in Delhi as well, whom I married, and yeah, the rest is history.
Oh yes, that's true. The rest is history, and this is what we're gonna talk about. That history. So after you got your time in New Delhi, what happened? Where did you go next?
So I studied in Delhi. I finished my, higher education there, my degree and a postgrad dip, which I did in IT, interestingly. So I toggled between the world of commerce and what was really, really in at that point in time was information technology. Now these days we talk about AI, but 23 years ago it was really all about IT, right? IT was a huge buzzword back then. And the year that I graduated was when we had something called the Y2K. I'm not sure if
I remember that
you
one.
were there. Oh, you were. Okay.
Y2K is like Y2000.
Yes, exactly. And it was a bug in the computer system. And people thought that, the world is going to end. It was that crazy. So I was a graduate of Y2K, right? And I was an IT graduate at that point in time. It was an interesting time to be because what then happened was Y2K did not become a huge thing, right? It just fizzled off. People were waiting for clocks to stop, or service to, come to a halt. Nothing of that sort happened. But I graduated and was available for employment by the IT sector. So I had a choice in my hand whether to get employed in India and stay on, or to return home to Malaysia where I belong, right? And the only decision that really, pulled me back to Malaysia was that my parents were still based out of Malaysia. And also for the fact that, living in India as a foreigner who's not a student is also a considerable, issue, because you'll need to then apply for work permit and stuff like that. So it was easier to get back home and look for a job. So hence I returned home, and I did not know this at that point in time, but Indian IT graduates were a huge thing in Malaysia because we were well ahead of our time in terms of the types of programming languages or skills that we had compared to what was being used in the IT industry in Malaysia. So that was a huge advantage that set me ahead of the rest who were employed in that sector at that point in time. So when I came back, I had this option of either pursuing what I had learned using my commerce degree or the IT. So I had 2 job offers in my hand.
Okay.
Within almost about 2 weeks after I arrived as a fresh grad, and one was in the capital market and the other one was in teaching IT, right? And after much deliberation I chose the IT, and it was a great decision because at that point in time I think it was one of the most lucrative jobs to be able to teach certain advanced programming languages, which was not exactly used in mainstream IT sector in Malaysia. It was almost like knowing AI ahead of a few of your peers here, right? And being able to teach that. So that was a good start for me, and so very quickly within about 6-7 months, I was actually asked to teach the faculty of the same institution where I was working, because all of the faculty were also 2 to 3 years behind in terms of the kind of programming languages and skills that they were teaching at that point in time. So yeah.
So you were from studying in India to teach in Malaysia, but to teach such an advanced art, in this case a science, that very few actually were able to even practice right away because it was not very mainstream. What kind of opposition did you find during those very 6 months?
So I was actually employed as a faculty in an institute here in Malaysia. It was an IT institute. yeah, they promoted me to head of academics,
Okay.
which was quite strange because I was the new kid in the block. I was literally a kid. I was 19 years old at that point in time. Mainly because in India we start education early and we finish early.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a graduate of Y2K when I was about 19, right? And when I came into this institute, the rest of the peers were all in their 40s, and the students were also working professionals. So it was a great place to start, I would say, to really acquire skills of how to deal with people who are much more senior than you, and yet be able to add value in the right way, and also sort of like balance between expectations and also delivering your best.
So that actually helped you to say, yeah, I have a question, I can move forward. So with the help of your faculty peers, you were the head for how long?
I stayed on for 2.5 years, and then I shifted to a different role, again another educational institution where I took on the position of a center manager, where I was actually sort of dealing with all aspects of a small educational outfit, which actually was one of my most memorable and most useful experiences to what I do currently at Asia School of Business, because it really lent insights into managing finance, managing HR, and different aspects of the education industry. And then again, these were all short stints because I was still young and I was still trying to get a feel of what exactly I wanted to do. And I stayed on for a bit and then shifted gears again, and this time I got into a larger organization, which is HSBC in Malaysia, but this was the data processing center, which was new back then in Malaysia. It was a large outfit. At that point in time, I think they had they were about to employ 3,000 employees, and they were just starting out. So I was like maybe number 10 or number 11th employee or something like that. So again, I saw a large scale outfit being staffed and growing into their full capacity, and that took again another 2 to 3 years of experience there, but doing something completely different, which was creating competency frameworks and leadership and development programs for HSBC staff within the group across different levels. Again, it was a very project-based role. So there were special projects that were assigned, and there I acquired skills of project management, dealing with multiple stakeholders and whatnot.
So you went from the academics to the corporate side, actually helping the Lions of HSBC to enter Malaysia. That reminds me of my time in Hong Kong when I met the two Lions, Stephen and Steve. And recently we visited the office here in KL, but there are no Lions, only a paint. So it's like, yeah, I remember these ones.
But then again, I did not. This was the data processing center, so this was not setting up the HSBC outfit itself, because the HSBC bank has been here longer. But the data processing center was something new that the group was actually implementing from.
And this is the time before all the cloud business was implemented.
Sort of, yes, yeah.
And I also
early
believe that
2000s.
on a data center you need to have a constant load of energy.
Yeah.
Because if you have volatility in the input of your energy, then your data source
Correct.
is not very reliable.
Right. But this was not the cloud-based data centers per se that you see in this day and age. This was data processing, which means that it's an outsourced business processing unit where all these different functions of a bank are actually outsourced to Malaysia. Of course, they use data storage services and things like that. But it's not the same. It's not in the same sense of a
Now,
data center.
when we see those roles, the stereotype has been always that it's a man that usually is in charge of this. It happens to be a woman. So how was your day-to-day relationship, like especially with people who were seeing your name and it's like it's gonna be another dude in the blog and it's like okay.
I never thought about it that way. Not in the capacity that I'm doing my work, right? Like, because education sector is quite gender neutral, I would say. If you're talking about STEM, yes. Again, shifting gears back to the first role that I had, yes, there were more men in the IT sector. In fact, most of my students were male. Especially those who are working professionals, who are software engineers or programmers, they were all mostly men, only a few ladies in the class. That was, pretty evident. And how did that come across to me? Well, it didn't quite matter because I didn't put much thought into it, like, I'm teaching a class of men. I think it's also your mindset, right? Like, if you do see the distinction, then it appears. But for me, it's more of what am I bringing to the table? What am I sharing with this group? And how do I add value? It's more of what do I have to share with you? What do I have to offer? How do I transfer the knowledge? That was the focus rather than whom am I speaking to, right? If not, I think there were a lot of different aspects that would have intimidated me, like the age, for instance, because I was still a kid, more or less, still in, late teenager to early 20s, right? And but here I am teaching 40-year-olds or even 50-year-olds in the class. So ageism would have been a problem. Diversity would have been a problem. Of course, I had different races as well. There were, interestingly, for some reason, there were many Japanese in the class. I think because a lot of programmers back then, in corporates, they were like either Japanese or Indians or a lot of Chinese programmers. So those things would have bothered me, but it did not, thankfully. And it also sort of reinforced my strengths of not seeing all these things and not being bothered by it. So it does help me even till date, right? Like at Asia School of Business, we are super diverse, right? Like in terms of the kind of nationalities that we deal with. I don't see you as somebody from Texas or somebody from South America, but I'm talking to you as a human to human. I think that's the way to go.
Absolutely. And really like how you express this not only from the moment but also through different times. That is like, okay, the consistency has been always there. So you're working with the Lions of HSBC. And right there, what happened next?
HSBC was pretty interesting for me because there were a lot of people, 3,000 people. That was the first time I was out there in the big world, and I saw the corporate culture come out and play, and how things move between people in the office, the relationships, the kind of corporate languages that people speak. So there was a lot of things to learn from as well. And I was also building a new skill set of understanding education in a different way. So I've now moved on from doing anything to do with programming and IT and things like that. So where my everyday lingo was all about coding and debugging and talking about technologies and stuff like that. Now I'm talking more like a learning and development person, talking about leadership skills, competencies. What does it take to create a valuable employee? So that was the vision that we had, right? And what are the different aspects that needs to be strengthened? What avenues do you give people to grow? and again, this is looking at it from a management perspective and also from a board's perspective, because a lot of work that I did had to be presented to the board of that specific HSBC outfit. So it was really a great exposure for me in terms of moving from IT to education, core education, especially corporate education, right? And after HSBC, then it was really like a question of, do I then now really look for a job or just stay here and grow? So again, there are two options, right? You always come to these forks in life, and it's interesting how you make a certain decision and it leads to a new set of possibilities. It doesn't mean that the other set of options that are still available are invalid. It doesn't mean that, this or that, right? It's just a matter of where you end up. And so what I chose after HSBC was to again look for an interesting role that would give me an international exposure, because I really wanted to know what's more out there beyond Malaysia. How do I grow my working relationship with somebody who's a peer in a different country, for instance, because it'll be interesting to know how do people interact between cross-national projects and things like that. And I think I landed a perfect role with Securities Commission of Malaysia, where I took on the international desk back then. It was something like an international affairs team, where I had to lead a lot of different types of interesting conferences, summits, and projects. But what's interesting about it is that it put me in touch with international bodies like APAC, ASEAN, the OECD, or ADB, and so on. So all these multilateral organizations, right? And because Securities Commission has this key agenda to sort of put Malaysia on the map for being a leading education hub for capital markets. So they were into regulator to regulator education programs, and we wanted to be seen as the leader in that sense, and I think we did a great job in drawing many countries into Malaysia through all these different kind of programs, and we were the secretariat for all these different international bodies. So it was like ASEAN summit happening in Securities Commission for capital markets, for instance. And in that role, I learned how to, really develop program outlines, conference outlines. How do you deal with different people of various stature, especially people who can speak, who can contribute to the conferences and whatnot. So again, a very formative experience that led me to deal with international bodies and understand, what it takes to really put things together and see it from inception to execution. Yeah.
You mentioned about how you were dealing with different institutions that has different backgrounds and different skill sets, especially when they come together, and how you two need to line up speakers and the like of it. How more often than not you have a confirmed speaker and then they cannot attend, or the food that you are supposed to give all of the students is not available, and some people have their differences, they cannot eat that thing. Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You always expect the unexpected, and I think it also sort of helps if you have backup plans and have the ability to think on your feet. I had plentiful experiences dealing with, even vividly I remember a speaker who was ready to go on stage, and he's having lunch with us. He's next in line to speak, but the waiter comes and spills a soup on his entire dress, and he can't go on stage anymore. Or to another one that I vividly remember, where an entire panel of speakers had food poisoning, and all of them took turns to rush to the washroom while the panel is on. It was bad.
Wow.
So we were,
So
yeah.
how did you keep everything going?
Well, you step in between if you can, and yeah, you just roll with the show.
What happened then?
With the panel that
Uh-huh.
had food poisoning, well, you have to be forthright and just keep everyone informed about what's happening, what's going on, why a panelist moving in and out of the room.
Wow.
Yeah, I think in any situation, honest communication and a little bit of humor always helps.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can imagine there will be some stand-up comedians where they're saying, "This is my chance,"
Yes. Why not, right? Yeah.
and it's fascinating to see how that improvisation combined with professionalism helps everybody say, "Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
So what? Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving."
Keep it real, keep it authentic. Yeah. So that was my sort of like the professional journey, right until then again after Securities Commission, I sort of switched gear again, but this time more out of having done enough of the same thing. So I sort of got bored after 7 years of doing the
Okay.
same kind of stuff, which was all very, very amazing. High level conferences and gave me all the exposure that I needed. It satiated my need to be, like connected to the world outside, right? That was done, and then I was out looking for a new adventure again, and then I realized that this world of finance is beyond finance in Malaysia, especially. I think our finance regulators like the Securities Commission and Bank Negara Malaysia have done an amazing role in setting up various kinds of educational outfits. And then I discovered this whole new world under Central Bank of Malaysia, where they have many, many different types of educational outfits. And one of them being our prominent neighbor, which is AICB and the Asian Banking School. And so that was my next stop, where again I spent a considerable amount of number of years working in different capacity, again in education, but this time in qualification development. So
Okay.
it was more of being in the program development team, learning how to design real qualifications like the one that ASB offers, and also designing programs. And then I moved on to a slightly different role, which was more of approving and authorizing a number of a lot of different types of trainers and faculty for their programs. It was a huge role just to accredit and approve trainers and things like that. Yeah.
So it sounds like besides training, it looks like you were doing also the test. Like I'm gonna be writing the test that they're gonna be taking.
Tests, not really. Tests are a unique skill set.
Of course.
To even design a question for a question bank, a single question can be evaluated and reviewed like a number of times by different types of people. That's a completely different skill set. The specific focus that I had was actually program designing, and there is a certain technique to it. In fact, I had to sit through something called the Certified Training Professional qualification, which actually teaches you how to go about assessing needs, to evaluating why you're doing a certain type of program, whether it's a program or qualification or a conference, it doesn't matter, it's the same principle. So it basically looks at how do you assess needs, how do you design a concept, how do you even deliver, and how do you then assess. So there are like a few steps to that entire process itself, and then how do you teach and facilitate.
And I believe that the time that you arrived there, this was still all green, right?
Yeah, there was a building here,
Ah.
which is the former Prime Minister's office.
Ah,
And
okay.
it was still very much intact, and I wasn't here in the sense of being in this neighborhood because the offices were elsewhere near KL Sentral.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, so we were working there, and it was a fun experience because there were a lot of, it was a bigger team that I had and different personalities to manage, and it was an interesting experience, yeah.
You mentioned something that some people may catch up, KL Central, which is not only a train station but also like a plethora of businesses, buildings, and it has so much stuff going on. And can you tell us what is KL Central for you?
Oh, wow, KL Sentral is a lot of things for me. That's the place where I actually lose my money every month because
Oh, really?
because the office that we had was housed inside a shopping mall, or next door, adjacent to a shopping mall,
Ah.
New Central, right?
NU Central,
Yeah.
yeah.
So lunch was always spent at New Central, and
Oh.
so it was expensive lunches every day. Of course, it's always a choice again. You can either cook from home and bring your food, or choose to.
Because you also have brickfields.
Yeah, oh, yeah. So it's always a matter of choice. It's just that couple of us, chose to eat at New Central every day, so we splurged on ourselves, and that's where we spent our money every paycheck.
Yeah.
Buying lots of goodies. So it's not really a appropriate place for us to work. But KL Central is an amazing hub. Yeah, we've got all kinds of different trains coming in. Stationing there. I think it's a huge. It's a great concept. Whoever came up with it, and all the different offices and residentials around that area. I think it's really well planned.
Mm-hmm. I remember taking the KL Central station to go to the Exeter Tower. That it was literally in front of the place because there was where Boost Digital Bank was there, Exeter Tower.
Yeah.
Or when I have to go to Bansar, I have to literally go to KL Central and then one more station. Or what about taking the Bangladesh station for the KTM? It takes me to KL Central. And if I want to go to the airport, KL Central to
Yeah.
clear. It's like, yeah, it's pretty convenient.
Yeah. KL Express is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, gotta be honest, the capacity to take a train for 50 ringgit to go to the airport is fantastic, let's be honest. Because it goes like every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like you are gonna
No
be there.
hassle. Yeah. Guaranteed.
Now, the only thing that actually beats that is 50 ringgit bus from KL to Singapore.
Yes.
Okay, but it is on your own risk.
Yeah.
But if you have to go to Hong Kong, yes, instead of paying the 70, the 80 ringgit from Grab, you can only pay 50,
Yeah.
and then you take the airplane. That is more flexible.
That's true. And interesting that I worked in KL Sentral, and it was quite an interesting time. Not just for shopping, but also accessibility to go to different companies that we're visiting and whatnot. We could use the train, and it's like really easy and convenient in that sense. A lot of people who are visiting us were also able to visit us. Again, it's a matter of choice. Do you want to take the train, or do you want to drive, or do something else, right? And yeah, if we had a train station nearby, which is like an MRT or LRT, I might take it, but it's because it's KTM, it's slightly slower, and it doesn't have enough stops. So yeah, I
And
end up driving.
That's true. And also number two, the KTM is like, okay, you need to be there like in advance to get the train, otherwise you have to wait 1 more hour.
Yeah, but then again, we're also in close proximity to the star, so you again choices. If you're okay to walk a little bit further, yeah, still convenient in that sense.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So we just discussed right now the easiness of moving around the place of KL, but I'm led to believe that you were also in other places besides KL. Can you tell us a little story about that?
About other places that I've been to
Mhm.
within Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't traveled extensively within Malaysia. It's just been to some of the major cities like Penang, to Malacca, to Kuantan, which I really like a lot because the beaches have big waves there.
Ah,
Have you seen the east coast of Malaysia?
I was in the Tenga Island for a business practitioner,
Yes.
but that was literally just one of the islands. It was not the actual East
Right.
Coast.
Right. I think in Malaysia, the best beaches are all in the east coast, and one of the wonderful, memorable journey that I had with my family was to Tioman Island, because my family and I have a tendency to make impromptu travel decisions. So we just decided one fine day, hey, let's just drive down all the way to Tioman Island. We had no idea where we were heading or whether we didn't even book a hotel. So we just got into the car and drove, and we reached the port of Mersing, which has a jetty to Tioman Island, and then only then we discovered that that was the last jetty. Okay, it was adventurous enough, so we got onto the jetty, and then when we ended up in Tioman Island, we realized that all the hotels were booked. We had no place to stay,
Okay.
and we had arrived, and there's no way back because there's obviously that was the last jetty in, and then somehow we scrambled and we managed to get a room, thank God, in a really nice resort. But it was really, super adventurous to venture
Yeah.
that way. But it was a completely enjoyable trip. And what I love the most is the beach. It's beautiful, it's blue green, and some of the best places for you to see in Malaysia. Please do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally confirm that. I still remember most of my memories in that Batu Batu resort when we actually helped some of the business. And Chair, thank you for all the opportunity that you gave us during that time because she was the main sponsor of all our cohort being there. And yeah, I hope one day once I start making money, yeah, let's be there on the island.
Yes.
I remember actually I did a small reflection video. Maybe people can see it here. That sea is part of this sea wave and everything. Very peaceful.
Yes. And also because I grew up mostly in Delhi, and Delhi is landlocked, right? There's no beaches whatsoever. Thankfully, my outlet back then was my summer holidays, where my parents were based in Langkawi at that point in time. So they always made sure that I fly back for my summer holidays to Langkawi. That was also super memorable because, coming from a landlocked Delhi city to a sunny beach in Langkawi was like paradise. So that's how I spent my childhood. So I was always have this craving to go back to the sea and just chill.
It's like the sea is calling
Yeah, the
every
sea is
time,
always
right?
calling, yes.
And given that your time here in KL, you were in KL Sentral for the AACP. When did you receive the news that they were moving?
Oh, they moved after I had moved to ASB. So I joined ASB in 2017, and I think at that point in time they were still building that building over there. I had no idea it's going to be so beautiful. It's a huge outfit too, and if you really contrast it with the office space that we were working in prior to the building, it's like the sky and the moon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And but then again, I didn't cut myself short at all. Look at ASB, we're amazing, beautiful place to work at, and very futuristic and much more bigger in terms of what we're intending to do here, right? In terms of the just the agenda itself. We're creating a movement here, to be honest, a new learning movement, a new way of thinking about education, and it's a phenomenal experience to work at ASB. So yeah, after AICB, it was right here.
Mm-hmm. And I can imagine that they couldn't live without you. That when they heard that you're gonna be in the Sasana or nearby, they are like, "We're gonna move to the next building."
Yeah, interesting. I keep telling this to everyone I meet at ASB. My past and present is forever colliding at Asia School of Business, because a lot of these different companies that I worked with, especially in recent years, right, all of them in one way or the other share the same kind of ecosystem space, and they have a lot of things to do with ASB, so they keep coming here either for meetings or events and things like that, and they keep bumping into me and they're like, hey, girl. So I'm super glad I never burnt any bridges, because I keep meeting my old friends and old colleagues over and over again, and it's such a pleasure.
That's a beautiful story, because how many times we heard about people that they got some frictions and they didn't want to come up front and they just decided to move away. Or what about people that they need to go to other places of the world and there was no internet back then, or even today they want not to talk. So to see that is a constant movement, a constant catch up. It's like people never left.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like people never left, and it's also good to see that, all these different realms are coming into ASB in one way or the other, and they find value here. They find an amazing network of people amongst students like you. We've got faculty, we have alums, we have all these wonderful different corporate communities who are plugged in into ASB. So it's like a place for people to, especially professionals and corporates, to come to and to look for various types of values. You've got thought leadership, you've got programs happening, you've got event space. It's been phenomenal, especially this year. Ever since we scaled up this way, I think I would say my own professional journey has skyrocketed. So even when I joined ASB about 2017, I think, was already, hit the ground running and then take off, right? And we were already flying at jet speed, because we started and then we were like boom, 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 and we did amazing stuff even within the young 5-6 years that we were set up. And then by 7th year we were rejigging, and of course the pandemic came in between, just lulled us a little bit, but it was just nice because right after the pandemic we opened up ASB in this huge grand manner, right? And then things ramped up even more, and we have new leadership who's amazing, great stuff that's happening, a lot of innovations and a lot of I would say cutting edge stuff being developed from ASB. So now the trajectory is from flight to rocket.
Achieving escape velocity to defy gravity.
Yes, there you go. Yes.
Given that you mentioned this in a very subtle way, I need to ask you, how has been the influence of Sanjay?
I think working for a leader like him for all of us has been just phenomenal. There's a few people that I've met of his caliber and of his stature who's able to connect to commoners as well, like all of us. He has lent not just his expertise and his network and value that he brings, right? He also teaches us on a everyday basis. We also learn from one another. I mean, I've had my dear colleague Jaime, who's also a student who interned with corporate development, right? Like he's also a student, right? And then it's very symbiotic. So he goes to class, he learns from Sanjay, he comes and teaches me too, and then we talk about it during our meetings with Sanjay. So it's a learning environment, and I think he teaches us a lot of stuff. We're learning at ChatGPT speed. The one phenomenal thing that we are still not able to keep up is his speed. The pace at which he actually operates is phenomenal. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's true. It's like all of a sudden you see that synergy going around, and it's contagious. And now that we are discussing about your tenure in ASB, I want to ask you about that place before the academic building, the Sasana Kijang. What memories bring you to that place?
You know what? nobody probably knows this, but I have been passing through Sasana Kijang long before I worked there,
Oh.
wanting to work there, just in the building, because I was in love with how the architecture was. It's beautiful, right? It's glass and it's metal, and it looks so beautiful lit up at night, right? Of course, that's before you get to see ASBC, but you know, back then there was no other building around this area, so I had passed by a number of times, and I was like, wow, it'll be really nice to be inside the building. And next thing I know, I actually had a job offer from another entity which is in Sasana Kijang called CSEN, which is also another Bank Negara's outfit. Just that whilst considering that, I had a different trajectory and I moved on to a different place. But what came in the following years was this offer from ASB, and I thought that was really interesting. That I ended up working in the place. Working there was wonderful. We had interactions with different different offices, international offices like AFI and World Bank, and the IFSB, Islamic Financial Services Board. So we had this potpourri of people that we can actually interact with and even do programs and projects together. So it was really beneficial that way, and it attracted a lot of all these senior delegations from different countries and ministries and so on. So it was a nice place to be, to make connections and thrive. Yeah.
And we also need to be a little more analytical in the sense that Kruthiga from the past who saw the Sasana wanted to be there because there was no academic building there. And once the academic building was finally dedicated, it's like, you're happy to be here. And what about those two little things that nobody talks about, which is the hidden gardens? Like, it's like, I remember walking from the Sasana to the academic building, and people were like, can we go to? Yes.
Yeah.
You can go, but if you manage to come here,
Yeah.
because that's another thing. From the downtown area to the station of Masjid Jamek is one thing, but if you take the Bandaraya close to Sogo, that's another thing, and then you need to take the bridge to come here, or if you are from the Bank Negara KTM, you arrive, and then where are the gardens? Like, it's a little difficult. It's not like in Marina Bay in Singapore that you see the gardens are there. It's a different one.
Yeah, in a way, we're a little bit of a secret garden in that sense. This is a place where, as I mentioned, there are certain types of people that who move around here. A lot of expats and people who are cyclists, into cycling, into walking, and all these kind of health enthusiasts. They tend to know us because they walk about and they understand who we are. Or professionals and all these senior level delegations who whiz past because they've come here for some ministerial meetings, they know us. Otherwise, to the common Malaysian man and woman out there, they may not know. We're sort of Asia's best kept secret in that sense. But once you discover this place, it's an enclave on its own, right? You've got all these beautiful gardens and trekking path, and in fact within ASB we have these beautiful lawns, and I kept telling Fabian, let's do the lawn. Let's do this video recording in the lawn for real. But yeah, we chose to do it here because of the lighting
And the architecture.
and the architecture is beautiful. Yes,
That's true, because we don't know that it's going to be raining. Because once again, in the environment of KL, all of a sudden it rains and it's like
totally.
it's a different way.
Yeah, but the gardens are beautiful. I think we can optimize the garden even more. I think we should encourage our students and staff to walk about a little bit more. The only danger of doing that is the monitor lizards around here. You have to be watchful. There's one that chased us the other day.
Oh, really?
Yes. Oh well. If you're okay with creepy crawlies, it's all right.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's beautiful, and I understand there's a herb garden as well. There's a section of herbs growing in here. It's a place to hang out.
Now, given that you has been in many places, I need to ask you which has been the little differences you have seen.
Differences.
Yeah,
as
the little
in-
differences across the regions because you were in Delhi, you have been also in Langkawi, has been in KL across different times. So, which are the little differences you've seen?
I would say that there are huge differences. There's no, not to say little differences between life in Delhi and life in Malaysia. Malaysia is much more, quiet to a great extent, mainly because of the population, right? In Delhi, it's brimming, it's alive, it's dynamic, and there's a lot of social gaps that you evidently see up there. In Malaysia, it's much more even, and I think there's a stable way of life here that's quite peaceful, and it is just to an extent quite monotonous. It just goes on that way. You don't see violent shake-ups or stir-ups on a daily basis. Like in growing up in Delhi, there were like a lot of threats as well. You've got bomb threats, you've got earthquake threats, you've got one day you open the door, there's a huge sandstorm coming in at you. So there were a lot of dangers that you live by on a daily basis. Yet it's super fun. It depends on how you see it, actually, what lens you see it with. The little differences, well, I don't see them. Like, if there are some small differences, it just escapes me. Across timelines and across different eras that I've lived in, because I've also seen time without internet, right? Like I've grown in that time and age where you're not born with a handphone like my kid is. So I've seen that timeline. I've seen the timeline where internet was just coming about, the Y2K period, and the time when Facebook was launched for the very first time, or WhatsApp came about. So I've lived through those timelines. Yes, there I see a huge difference. Like what we did before and after. It's completely just like how the lights turned up. It's completely bewildering.
That's absolutely right. Given your journey, I need to ask you about these pivotal moments. Some people got a chance to make decisions, but sometimes there are compromises along the way. So I need to ask you, which was the most challenging compromise you did, and why was that?
Yeah, well, I didn't see them as compromises per se. Again, it's really about options. As I was mentioning, right, you've got different forks in life. Sometimes it's not just two forks, right? It's like it's a few options that you can take. And I'm a careful deliberator. Like I really think through when I'm making some choices. I do tend to sort of like go back and forth and figure out if I really need to make this choice or that choice. I take my time to deliberate, but once I make a decision, then I'm all for it. So I go straight ahead. And so in that sense, I think the option of whether to stay on in India and work or come back to Malaysia was a pivotal moment where I had to really like decide, do I stay on and be happy with my circle of friends here, or do I just leave everything behind and just move back to Malaysia? Because moving back to Malaysia was almost like moving to a foreign country back again for me, even though I'm from here. Mainly because my social network had changed, even my everyday life had changed, right? Like the food that I consumed, the way I dressed, to the languages I spoke. Because growing up, I'm from a Tamil family, I speak Tamil, but growing up in Delhi, I ended up speaking in Hindi to everyone, especially my extended family who's all in Delhi, based in Delhi, and they all speak in Hindi and they eat chapati, for instance, on a daily basis. So the food changed, the language changed, and the way of life changed. So it was a question of, do I leave everything behind and come back here and start afresh? And it was indeed, that's what I chose. It was indeed a fresh start, and it was completely like as if I'm a foreigner in my own land. I had to relearn Bahasa Malaysia, which I had forgotten. I had to understand the nuances between different, languages spoken like Chinese and Malay. I couldn't even tell the difference. But luckily I was able to pick it up back again because I did learn it in school when I was studying here. So it wasn't that hard. It was like an adventure. Yeah.
I see that, and I cannot grasp, but only to appreciate all that effort that you put. Now, there is always a quote. People always tells me that the best food of China that you can find outside China, you can find it in Singapore. But the best Indian food that you can find outside India is in Malaysia. So I'm trying to understand how we can actually validate that hypothesis. And from people that have been telling me yes, some they say, others they say Malaysia needs more from the Indian food or things like that. So what are your point of view on that regard?
Yeah, well, frankly speaking, if you want to find a certain cuisine, go to the original country.
Ah,
Because the flavors do differ from the home country to whatever other countries because of the kind of spices that you use, right? Even if you import it from the country of origin, somehow in the import process things change. I think the flavor changes or how they pack or God knows what. It has never been the same. You can't get what exact flavors that you get in India outside India. I've tried Indian cuisine in a few other countries around the region. Not really. I don't think you get the same flavor and texture. It's because of the vegetables and the spices that are grown in India is used for Indian cuisine originally, and yeah, it tastes different. Likewise with Malaysian food, right? Like thankfully, Malaysian food is amazing in its own right, and again, it's you can't get the same kind of kick out of eating Malaysian food, let's say in Vietnam. No, it doesn't work the same way.
that's a good point taken. Going back to your journey, nowadays you are in the corporate development, which is the development of corporations. So can you tell us what actually means?
Yes, we're thinking of a better title for that team because corporate development in its true sense in other industries, especially like in the finance sector, it's more of mergers and takeovers and developing, as you mentioned, right? It's a different agenda. Corporate development at Asia School of Business is really about engaging corporations for the business school. So in this team, so I'm actually leading a few things. Like we've got partnerships with various different kinds of entities because we are really, hub of knowledge where we are attracting, platform bodies, embassies, trade chambers, and multilateral organizations. Name it. All kinds of different companies, startups, all into ASB for various different purposes. So there's a partnership angle to this, and then there is the corporate engagement angle wherein we actually work with various different types of clients, a lot of multinationals and government-linked companies, mainly because we want to, offer them value through the various things that we do as a business school. We've got amazing students, talents that a lot of companies are looking to us for hiring. We've got MBA programs, we've got our executive education programs, amazing niche research centers which are producing, I don't think you can find this kind of research anywhere else within Asia. So they're doing a phenomenal work again. So many different aspects of the school that corporates can actually benefit from. So we are university partner or business school partner for these companies. So that's the point of corporate engagement. And beyond that, we also have a large international agenda wherein we have many different countries of interest where again we're doing country specific outreach and engagements. So all this sits with the corporate development office. Yeah.
That's a very clarifying explanation because imagine somebody hearing those two words and is like, "You're not doing that."
Yeah.
It's a different way to label it.
Yeah.
And also engagement,
Yes.
which is for other industries will be like, "Oh, are they doing engagements in that kind?" No,
Yeah.
no, it's a different kind of
Correct.
engagement.
Yeah. So I only do corporate engagement, not corporate marriage. Yeah.
Good point. That's a good point.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been also watching other industries that they call engagements. It's like it's time to pay, which is collecting.
Yeah.
That's another stuff.
Yeah, so I think terminologies differ
Mhm.
across different industries. So it's always about looking at context. Like, so this is a business school. Where do we add value to the community? And of course, we've got a huge network of very different professionals and even young people who are coming to the school for knowledge, for engaging with our amazing faculty that we have from within ASB and MIT. So there's a lot of eyes on Asia School of Business, people who are really wanting to connect. So corporate development's key function is to front the school in this regard. So we front the school to engage with all kinds of communities and with a specific focus on corporate relations. So within that scope, I think I get to meet so many different types of people, and I like that because as a person, I like engaging with people. I like to understand their needs and really approach it from a what can I do for you? How do I add value for you? Kind of mentality. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you something that can be a little personal. But we got in the podcast also Juliana and DW, and they mentioned that you have a certain style that is very unique. It's not only that you are active, but it's like, in a way, you are like an eagle. So,
Were they talking about me in their podcast? Really?
well, outside the podcast, but they say like, you see,
Alright.
Kruthiga is like a hunter. She like sees that and goes
Oh.
after this, and because that activeness, that proactiveness,
Okay.
is actually welcome. And some people may be asking, how did you develop that style?
I beg to differ. I don't think I see myself as an eagle. I really don't chase. I don't.
You hunt.
No, I didn't hunt either. I think I somehow attract
Oh,
without me trying too hard. Also, it's in the capacity of the position, right? Like when people know that you are the front face of the school, you are in a position to connect other parts of the school. They do come to the division, and of course, they get to meet me through that. And also by virtue of the fact that I'm always sort of like offering people, how can I help? That opens a lot of doors. So it's always about, for me, it's never about hunting people and like angling and saying, hey, Fabian, what can you do for me? I think I calculate, I pre-mediate and calculate this is what Fabian is good for, and then I go and approach more. It's never that way. It's always about going with an openness to find out who you are, what exactly you think of ASB, what are your pain points, and how can we add value. And when you then share what ASB has to offer, they are more receptive, and if they like, they'll pick it up. So it's always about asking what they need and offering what you have, and give them time and space to choose. I don't really believe in hunting like a shark or
it's beautiful when you mention giving time to choose,
yeah.
which is in a certain way giving the other side of the party the freedom of choice.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer of options and, free will, right?
Mhm.
All of us have that choice in hand to make. Just think through your choices, though. Yeah.
Especially coming from a person who always have like, okay, by the time of doing a decision, a choice to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel that, give more than you take, right? Like, if you can offer help, or if you can offer something even without expectations, I think it don't even expect, but it just comes back to you in multiple ways. And so when you take up something, it's also about like really honoring what you have actually taken up. So I do go the extra mile to make sure that whatever I said does happen. So at times it does put me at a tricky position where I've taken on too much, promised too many people, and then there is not enough time. So that is a challenge, but I do come back somehow. It may be late. Like I have promised you some things. It may be late, but I'll get back to you. Yeah.
It also reminds me the quote of River Phoenix, who was the late brother of Joaquin Phoenix, who in the 90s he wrote a poem. In one of those lines he said like, "Go to the rescue with love, and peace will follow."
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it resembles on that kind of thing
Yeah.
that you see also in Miami with the VCs where they're like, "How can I help?" Even Mayor Suarez from Miami always says, "How can I help?" That was very huge during the pandemic. That's why a lot of business went to Florida.
Yeah.
And it also seems here as well, which is beautiful to be
Yeah.
honest.
I think it's also about approaching a fellow human being with love, right? Like, how do you actually help others? It's as basic or fundamental as that. I mean, we're put on this earth for various purposes, not just one purpose. I always think that there's too much given into finding your one singular purpose. No such thing. And I feel like there are multiple purposes that you serve, and you can serve multiple people. And if you can help one another, it just makes the world a better place.
I believe that there's going to be a lot of people watching this. Among them, there's going to be some young Kruthikas.
I hope so.
So, what piece of advice will you give to your younger self?
Gosh, I think there's a lot of talk about the future, right? Future of work, future of AI, future of this and that. And I think as a generation, we're all focused so much on the future. Please don't forget the present. I think living in the now is huge, right? Because just this moment is true. Like this moment is true. We're sharing this moment. Always believe in giving your full, present, undivided attention to any moment that you have. And of course, that's idealistic. Sometimes I do get distracted. Okay, full disclosure. But it's still a principle that I try to live by, that I try to be mindful of the present moment. If you're drinking a cup of tea, immerse yourself and drink that cup of tea. Give it your all and just enjoy that present moment. Being mindful that way, it just opens up your mind and it makes you alive. So I think just don't let moments slip by just because you're focused on the future. Likewise, being associated with the past, I don't think we should really, get hooked on to what happened yesterday. It's really about taking a day at a time, taking a moment at a time, and living that moment. I mean, do you even realize like how many times you have breathed today, right? Like we are not mindful of these kind of stuff. But actually, if you pause and spend, let's say, just a minute, just observing what that you're breathing and you're alive, it just changes your perception of reality in a very different way. So yeah, the advice is to live your moment.
Kruthiga, I cannot find a better way to close this episode. How can people find you?
Don't find me. That we shall keep it a mystery.
It's fine, it's fine.
Because, yeah, well, I've got an overwhelm of emails and messages and LinkedIn messages of late. So I'm flying under the radar for now. But if you must, Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way. I'm there, but I'm not there.
Kruthiga, thank you very much for doing this. I really enjoy doing this
Likewise.
episode.
Thank you. Such a pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. I didn't think I'm such a great, worthwhile showcase for you to do a podcast, but this was enjoyable though. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for people out there, please stay safe and see you when I see you. And that's it.